Hi, this is Simon Obstell and welcome to another tutorial for Apple Motion. Now, yesterday I published a very simple quick tip on a lighting effect that is actually quite useful, and somebody asked me how I would turn it into a template for Final Cut. So I thought it would be useful to do another process video in which I talked you through my thought processes in real time, including the bits that go wrong. So let's take a look. Just before we start, I want to point out that my project is 1920-1080. So if you want to follow along with me, that's what you'll need for the project dimensions. Frame rate and duration don't matter. So the way that I showed you how to make this effect was that we cloned this group with the thing we want to light in it. So right click, make clone layer. We grabbed the rectangle mask tool and then we drew out a mask like this. And then we set the blend mode of this clone group to linear dodge. And then we just needed to adjust the feathering on the mask to get it to look more like a light strip. So that was the basic concept. And we also added, I think, a color levels. And this allowed us to brighten up the effect if we wanted, or we could actually use that to adjust the colour. I think we're not going to do quite this same thing, but anyway, let's leave it at that for now. Actually, let's reset that effect. So how are we going to turn this into a useful template for Final Cut? So it's going to be an effect, that's for sure. So I think one of the first things I want to do is make sure that whatever happens with this mask is going to be wide enough. So I think I'm going to set that width to something like, let's go for 2000. So it's going to be plenty wide enough. I also want to be able to create a sort of diagonal slash, what do I mean diagonal? I mean wider at one end than at the other. And I think probably the way to do this is to use the four corner option. So if we turn that on and let me just reset this mask position, make sure it's centered. That's going to be really important for us. So I'm thinking that if we do something with this, we can create the effect that we want. So I think I'm going to zero that out. And I think what we want to do is create a rig. So let's create object new rig and let's create a slider. And I think we want to be able to do the left and right independently. So let's actually make a new slider for left and another one for right. So let's come back in here. So let's add the top left and the bottom left. Is that what I want? Yes, I think I want to add those to the left-hand rig. So I've command selected those, drag that onto the left-hand rig. Command select the bottom and the top right and add those to the right-hand rig. So let's come over to the left. So let's think about the scale. Do we actually want to do this in terms of pixels, or do we just want to sort of like 0 to 100? I'm inclined to think 0 to 100 is better. So 0 is here on the left. So we click on this one here and then we set these values. So top left, let's go for positive 540 and bottom left go for negative 540. And I think that should probably open it up enough. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop in to this group here, the one we're going to be lighting. I'm just going to drag in a color solid so we can actually get some idea of what's going on. Now, why is this not working? Let's maybe make this color solid. Oh, there you go. Just need to darken it down. There we go. Darken it down. Doesn't really matter what color it is. It's just really a guide for us to be able to see what's going on here. So let's also set up our right. So let's do the same thing. Let's click here. So our top right, again, let's go for 540 and bottom negative 540. So that gives us this. That's quite good. So why am I getting this effect here? Maybe we just need to make this original mask even wider, because obviously we don't want to see that edge there, do we? So let's just increase that width enough like that. We probably need to go quite a long way, don't we? Let's go for 2500. It sort of doesn't matter as long as it's wide enough. Actually, let's go crazy. Let's go for 3000, and then there's not going to be no arguments about it. So that's kind of already starting to be quite good, isn't it? So we've got this left-hand control here. Determines how wide we go on the left. That one works for the right. So that's quite good. So what else can we do? Let's actually publish these, I think. Let's set a base value. Let's go for 10 for that and 10 for that. So, well, our default will be the same value for each side. So let's publish the left and let's publish the right. And over here, we've got those controls in our project. So then I think probably we need to think about a default height for the mask. Let's actually just reset the feather to 0 while we think about this. So at the moment we've got a height of 55. Let us maybe think about making that 5. Bearing in mind we're also opening it up with these controls here. So maybe those controls actually want to default to 0 like that, so it's more obvious. That's probably more sensible, isn't it? So then the actual mask height will be correct. So let's actually publish the mask height. That probably makes sense, I think, as well, doesn't it? And then let's also publish the feather. Let's do that, and let's see how things are looking. So then we can adjust the height like that, and we can adjust the feather like that. That's probably pretty good, isn't it? So let's have a default feather of, I don't know, 25. Default height, what should we have? 25 for that as well? Yeah. Okay, that's probably pretty good. And then we can do that with our other controls. Yes, I think it makes sense for those to be at 0. Okay, what else do we want to do? We want to maybe just think about this brightening thing, don't we? I think probably the way to go is with gamma. So if we do that, you can see that we're getting a nice brightening effect. So I think let's just publish the gamma. So let's reset it and publish it. Probably doesn't want to be called gamma RGB. Let's just call it gamma. And then for color, I think probably the simplest thing to do is add a colorize. So let's do that. Let's come to filter color and colorize. You can see that's adding some color. Let's make sure the remap black is set to 0 brightness, because you see it's actually a little bit red for some odd reason as the default. And let's set the remap white to fully white. And then we can just publish that. So publish the remap white and just call this color, I think, like that. And maybe we want to adjust the colorize amount, possibly. So maybe let's just publish the intensity. That's probably the simplest way, isn't it? Then we can decide whether or not that is going to work. So that's the basic stuff. Now I think we need to think about the more complicated things like the rotation. So obviously we want to be able to rotate the mask. So come to properties and rotation like that. But what do we want? We want to be able to rotate it about either the left-hand side or the center or the right-hand side, I think. So let's think of a way of doing that. I'm just going to leave a little bit of rotation in there so we can see what we're doing. So I think what we need to do is to have a rig that determines where the anchor point is. So let's open up the anchor point and the position. So let's come to the rig and add a pop-up, isn't it? Oh, just one pop-up. And let's call this anchor. Anchor like that. Let's come back to our mask. So we need to grab both the X position and the X anchor point and add those to that anchor like that. So let's call the first one left. And to get it on the left, we will need to set both the mask position and the... Why have I got two of those? What's happening here? Have I done something silly? No? It's just the fact that it's got the same name. It's confusing. Set both of these to negative 960, bearing in mind our project is 1920 1080. So that's put the anchor pointer on the left. If we just now rotate, you'll see it's rotating about the edge of the screen, which makes sense, despite the fact that our mask itself is quite a bit wider. So that's good. Let's then set up the right. So let's select snapshot 2, rename it as right, and then let's just do the opposite. So positive 960 and positive 960. And now that's rotating about the right hand side of the screen. That's cool. And let's select snapshot 3 and call this center. And actually that is right, isn't it? Because that's 0, 0. So that's rotating about the center. Good. Okay, so that is quite nice. Now, you're probably going to want an on-screen control to control things like position and rotation. So let's have a look at doing that. So to do that, we are going to come over to the library and add a color solid. So this is just a dummy so that we can add a control to it. So I think probably the one to go for is, it's such a long time since I've done this, poke. What has poke got? It's got, no, that's not good enough because it hasn't got a rotation control. So I think probably, oh yeah, twirl is good, isn't it? Twirl has got, yeah, twirl has got that. That's fine. Okay, so don't worry about any of this because we're not actually going to be doing any twirling. So actually we can twirl it down to 0. Or shall we do that? Actually, let's leave that at 0.25. Might come back to that, I don't know. So let us set that twirl rotation to 0. So then we can do the following. Let's reset the rotation and let's add parameter behavior link. Let's grab the color solid and filters twirl, and it was twirl, wasn't it? Twirl was the rotational value. So then if we rotate the, oh, we need to turn this off because we're not seeing anything. So if we rotate the, rotate the twirl, use the on-screen control like that. So that's rotating it. That's pretty cool. We do need to remember to publish OSC. So OSC obviously stands for on-screen control. If we don't publish that, it won't turn up in Final Cut. So we need to do that. And let's also just add the rectangle's position to the twirl's Y position. So let's just reset that Y position and let's add parameter behavior link, grab this color solid, grab filters, twirl, center, Y. Now you'll see that's popped it up to the top of the screen, and that's because of the different coordinate systems that are used by those filters that have on-screen controls and the actual coordinate system and the actual coordinates of your project. So if we enter negative 0.5 for that Y offset, come back to our twirl, you can see that now we can use that to move it up and down. I could lock the position of that to be central, but I don't think it really matters. I think it's fine that it just kind of swims around. So that's good. And one other thing we could do, yes, let's actually do that. We could either, as I say, we could add this Y scale, but that's not a terribly good idea because doing that makes it pretty rough and nasty, doesn't it? So maybe we just add that height to the twirl. I'm going to try that. I'm going to reset that to 0 and I'm going to link it to color, filters, twirl and amount. So now the twirl amount, where is the twirl amount? So this control here, this one here. So this control is now controlling the width of our strip. But I think we probably want to sort of scale it so that when we're here, it's kind of doing a bit more. So this last link here. So if we just increase that scale, if we went for 4, That probably makes sense, doesn't it? So now that is feeling more like it's fitting, doesn't it? It's probably a more accurate number we can use, but I think that's going to be good. So let's set a basic amount for that of, what is this? This is the height, is it? I've lost track now. 0.1. Yeah, so that's the height. It's not really making a lot of sense, is it? 0. So would we want any kind of basic height? Maybe we want to start at 0. So let's actually publish that. So publish that as being the height. And let's unpublish that height size. Let's undo that because that's not useful anymore. And let's call this height. And let's put it up here, I think. So then we can increase the height like that. So then if we have 0 feather, 0 height, yeah, it all goes away. That's fine. That's good. So this is the height. We do need to publish this as well as the on-screen control because you might want to be able to keyframe this. So let's have a basic height of not 0.1. Let's just go for 0. Yeah, that makes sense. Sort of makes sense because of the way the feather is working. Okay, so then let's come back to our twirl. We'll obviously need to publish that rotation. So let's set it to 0 and publish that. And we don't want to call it twirl. We want to call it rotation. Now let's move that, I think, up above the... Actually, let's move it here. Oh, no. Actually, let's move it to the top. Yeah. And then what's the other thing? Oh, the Y center. So we need to publish this as well. So if we want to keyframe the Y center. So let's publish that. And it's coming through as Y center. I think that probably makes sense. So let's put that there. So do we have all the controls we need? We've got this, which will open up our mask on the left-hand side. This will open it up on the right-hand side. What we haven't published is our, go into the rig, we haven't published our anchor point. Let's publish that. Publish the anchor point. Where would that go? Probably just here under rotation. And actually, let's turn off this color solid now because we don't really need that anymore. It probably makes more sense to be able to see this. I think that's good. I think the other thing I might want to do is we selected linear dodge for the blend mode, but we might as well just publish the blend mode just in case that we want the user to be able to do something else. So publish the blend mode. That looks like that. Probably just put it above the gamma like that. So now that's the gamma, that's good. This is the color, so if we wanted color in there, that's good too. Intensity of the color, feather. Do believe we might be in fairly good shape. Possibly that default is a bit silly, isn't it? Default height of sort of a really thin strip. Maybe we want to set that default height to, you see that height is kind of odd, isn't it? Do we want to adjust maybe that? Yes, I think we do, because we can control it with the left and right if we want a really extreme thing. So we need to come back. Let's just turn back on our color solid while we work on this. Turn back on our color solid. So the height, yeah, something's gone wrong there, hasn't it? What do we do? That was the scale there, and we set that to 4. Oh, because I wanted this sort of thing with the on-screen control, but that doesn't really make any sense, does it? So it means that when the twirl is at 0.28, it's sort of maximum height. And that's a little bit silly, isn't it? So I think linking those two visually doesn't really help. So let us maybe just set that to 1 for the scale there. And that will make more sense, despite the fact the on-screen control doesn't really quite match. Because that means that our default here, after a default height, so we could have a default height of 0.1, and then height goes all the way up like that. I think that's probably more sensible, isn't it? Let's have a default height of 0.1. Let's turn off this color solid. Yeah, I think we're good to go. So make sure you've saved this, by the way, as something. So I'm going to save it. Just save this as a test at the moment. Okay, so let's now set it up as a Final Cut effect. So let us simply come to File, Convert Project to Effect. and say yes to new effect source. Now that's made that into a new group down the bottom there, but we actually want this effect source to be in this group here, the one that's been cloned. So drop that into there. We can kill this group. We can turn off these elements here. We might want to leave those in just in case we want to come back and do some work on it. So let's leave those there. Here is our controls. This is all good. Okay, so now we can save this. So I'm going to save this into my category. I'm going to call it TKY lighting bar. Publish that. And let's come over to Final Cut and see how it's all gone. So here we are in Final Cut. Here is our effect. Let's drag it onto there. So what have we got? Looks like it's working. Let's I can never get these wretched on-screen controls to work. So there you go. There's our Y center. That's good. Can I make this work? Why can I not get that? Okay, there's our scale control. That's good. Here's our rotation. Okay, there we go. So that all works, and I can move it up and down like that. Let's increase the gamma maybe like that. Okay, so let's play with this. So let's open up that right hand side. That's quite nice. Maybe open up the left hand side a bit more. So where are we? Like that. Move it down a bit. This is looking quite good, isn't it? And maybe change the color like that. Gamma, so we can really do some fancy stuff there, can't we? Feather, reduce the feather. So it does go below 0, doesn't it? So that's probably quite okay, isn't it? Doesn't really matter. If we have feather of 0, we've got a completely sharp edge like that. Oh, let's think about this rotation thing. So there's the rotation, that's good on the... So we're rotating about the center at this point, aren't we? But if we rotate it about the left, we get that. That's good. And if we rotate about, oh, not the center, rotate about the right, we get that. So I do believe that's all working. So I think we've done a pretty good job, haven't we? So there's the overall height. I think that's probably all good. So hopefully you've seen that even in setting up really quite a simple effect template, there are lots of decisions you need to have to make and choices that you will probably end up revisiting. So hope that's been interesting. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon.